Right, so today what we're going to be looking at are something called karyotypes and genetic disorders. As you are going through, as I'm going through the notes, I need you to make sure you open up the karyotype notes, and it'll look just like this PowerPoint, but there's going to be some blanks that you're going to need to fill out within the PowerPoint. So make sure you type it out in a different font color, those blank parts. Now, before we go on with today's topic, we have to take a look at what these structures are, and these are called chromosomes, and we've talked about them when we were taking a look at our cells dividing during the process of mitosis or meiosis. And each one of these structures, you can see some are bent, some are straight. These are called chromosomes. And each one of those chromosomes, if you see, there's darker and lighter parts to each chromosome. And each of those darker or lighter parts are called genes. And those genes give us information about, let's say, our traits, let's say our skin color, our hair color, our eye color, information about how to make a protein, how our bodies work, if we're going to have a disorder or not. Each one of those darker or lighter parts of those chromosomes are called genes, and they give us information about those things. So what happens is a scientist will actually take a picture of a person's chromosomes during mitosis and then rearrange them in this structure called a karyotype. So here are the person's chromosomes. Now, what patterns do you notice here? Well, if you take a look, each of these chromosomes, they're paired up. Because remember, you get half of your chromosomes from your mom, half from your dad. So this pair right here, one of these chromosomes came from mom, the other one came from dad. The same for the second chromosome, one came from mom, the other came from dad. The other pattern that you should notice, other than them being paired, is they go in size order. Now, I know some are bent and some are straight, but that's the job of the scientist to kind of arrange them in the same in terms of size order. If you see these pairs, we call them homologous pairs, and those homologous pairs, they will have the same size and they'll hold the same type of information. So for instance, chromosome pair number 1 might give you information about, let's say, your hair color, but chromosome number, let's say 12, might give you information about your skin color, and chromosome number 19 might give you information about your hair texture. So each one of these pairs gives information about you. They are in decreasing size except for when we get to this last pair of chromosomes. And if you see, all of the other ones have numbers on them. This last pair doesn't have numbers, but it has letters. We're going to be taking a look at what the letters mean. So like I said, each chromosome pair gives information about you. All right, so what information can we find out about this diagram, this karyotype? So a karyotype is just, a picture of a person's chromosomes. Well, a scientist can look at this and see two things: their gender, the person's gender, and also if they have a genetic disorder or not. Now, how are we going to tell if what the person's gender is by just looking at their chromosomes? Well, you got to look at the last pair of chromosomes, the ones that are not numbered. These are the sex chromosomes. So these sex chromosomes, if you take a look at them, okay, what do you notice about them? Well, you should be able to see that the X chromosome is larger than the Y chromosome. And also they have different information. If you see, there are those lighter and darker parts to the chromosome. And like I said, those parts are called genes. Those sections are called genes. And they give information about, let's say, the person. So the X chromosome will give information about a specific disorder called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, where just over time, the person's muscles and controlling the person's muscles kind of start to, they weaken and they deteriorate. So it causes a person to, have trouble moving and maybe chewing and swallowing and any type of movement. Hemophilia, you would find information if a person's hemophiliac or not on the X chromosome, and that's a blood disorder. And what happens is if a person gets a cut, they will bleed longer than normal. And then you would also find the information for color blindness on the X chromosome too. And color blindness doesn't just mean black and white and gray is seen. It can be mixing up of colors. So when we take a look at a karyotype, we take a look at those sex chromosomes, and not only do they give us information about like these different disorders, but they give us information on what the sex or gender is of that person. If a person has two X chromosomes, these two larger chromosomes, they will be they're considered to be a woman biologically. So XX is woman. If a person has an X chromosome but also a Y chromosome, then that person will be labeled as male biologically. So they have X and a Y. So by looking at a person's karyotype, you can see what their gender is. So let's take a look. Here's a person's karyotype. There are 46 chromosomes. So if I were to count each one, here's one chromosome, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and go all the way through, I would count up 46 chromosomes. Because remember, 23 comes from mom, 23 comes from dad. Now look at this person's karyotype. What is the gender of this person? Now remember, to find the gender, we look at the last pair of chromosomes, and this person has an X and a Y. So because of that, I know this person is male, because XX would be female, but this person has an X and a Y. So how would we write this person's information? When we write this person's information, you always start off with the total number of chromosomes. And since they're all paired up, okay, I know that this person has 46 chromosomes. And like I said, if you needed to make sure, you would just count each individual chromosome. So the first part of the information would be their total number of chromosomes. The second part of their information would be what are their sex chromosomes. So in this case, it's XY. So the way we would write it is 46XY. So let's practice here. Look at the person's karyotype and what is the person's gender. Now, if you see, the person is going to be a female because they have two X chromosomes. They don't have a Y chromosome. Now, how should we write her information? Well, I know she has 46 chromosomes. You could tell by just counting them individually, but an easier way to know is they're all paired up, okay? There's not a missing chromosome. There's not an extra chromosome. They're all paired up. And so it's going to be 46. And then the second part of the information would be what are the sex chromosomes? And it's XX. So this is a 46XX. All right, but not all karyotypes will have the correct number of chromosomes. There are some times where errors occur when we're making more eggs or sperm during meiosis, where some eggs or some sperm might have too many chromosomes or not enough. And that's not the fault of the person, it just happens. And that error is called non-disjunction. So if that egg or sperm is used and they don't have enough chromosomes or they have too many, that baby will have maybe too many chromosomes or not enough. Okay, so an example of when this happens is called trisomy. That's when the egg and the sperm join to make this zygote, but there's 3 copies of a chromosome. So tri means 3, there's an extra copy. So which chromosome number shows an example of trisomy? Well, if we take a look, we're seeing that everything's paired up except for number 21. There's 3 copies instead of just 2. And because it's 3 copies on this particular chromosome, that will cause the person to have Down syndrome. So Down syndrome will cause them to have, some birth defects, some issues mentally, some physical differences in how they look. Now, if it was trisomy or 3 chromosomes for number 7 or number 3 or number 18, that's not Down syndrome. That they would be different types of disorders. But because it's on 21, that's Down syndrome. All right, how would we write this person's information? Now remember, the first part is writing the total number of chromosomes. Well, this person doesn't have 46 chromosomes, they have an extra chromosome, so we would write 47. The next part is, well, what is the sex chromosomes? This is X and Y, so this is a male. And then the last part is when there's an extra chromosome on one of these numbered sets, we're going to write a plus because there's an extra and it's specifically on number 21. So that's how you write the person's information. But not all errors would cause an extra copy of a chromosome. Sometimes an egg or sperm, before they join, might have a missing chromosome. So that's called monosomy. So when an egg or sperm join together and there's a missing chromosome, only one copy is seen of a chromosome, not two. So where would we see monosomy? Well, if we take a look at all of these numbers, okay, they're all paired up except for the sex chromosomes. In this case, the person only has one sex chromosome and not two. And this is an example that because it's happening on the sex chromosomes and this person only has one X, this person has something called Turner syndrome. Now, this would be a woman because she doesn't have a Y, she has an X chromosome. And because she doesn't have a Y, that means that she's not male. And what happens with Turner syndrome is it causes women to develop, their sex organs won't develop properly. And because of that, it will cause some infertility. That means they won't be able to reproduce. This also causes other problems in their bodies, like with their kidneys and their heart. How would we write their information? Well, the first part is always counting up the total number of chromosomes. Okay, normal number of chromosomes is 46, but she's missing one chromosome, so she has 45. The next part would be, what are her sex chromosomes? Well, she only has one X chromosome. And then that's how we would write her information, 45X. So I want you to go ahead and take a look and try this on your own. Is this an example of a karyotype that's normal, shows monosomy, or shows trisomy? Well, in this case, it would show trisomy because in this case, there's 3 copies of the sex chromosomes. There's an X, and a Y. Now, because there's a Y here, this person is going to be a male, and this person has something called Klinefelter's syndrome, and this will affect him physically and intellectually. And the way that we would write this person's information is, well, they have an extra copy of a chromosome. So instead of having 46 chromosomes, they would have 47. And the next part is writing the sex chromosomes. They have an X, and a Y. And that's how we're going to keep it as. Yes, there is an extra chromosome, but since it's not in one of the numbered chromosomes, we're not going to write plus and then a number. So what I need you to do is make sure that you fill out your notes and then make sure you submit them.